Welcome to Adventures in Accessibility, a podcast that explores the far reaches of disability, access, and inclusion, with your host, Emily Schumann.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Today's guest is Dr. Kerry Magro. Kerry was non-speaking till 2.5 years old, diagnosed with autism at 4 years, and didn't speak in complete sentences until 7 years old. Today, as an adult, he is an award-winning autistic professional speaker, best-selling author, and autism consultant with the HBO series Mrs. Fletcher and the latest season of Netflix's Emmy Award-winning series Love on the Spectrum. Kerry is CEO and president of KFM Making a Difference, a nonprofit organization that hosts inclusion events and has provided 150 scholarships for autistic students for college since 2011. Kerry's best-selling books, Defining Autism from the Heart and Autism Falling in Love, I Will Light It Up Blue, and his latest, Autistics on Autism, have reached Amazon bestseller lists for special needs parenting. His latest book, Supporting Your Autism Journey, was released on April 2nd, 2024 for World Autism Awareness Day. All right. Well, hi, Kerry. Thanks so much for being our guest today. We're so excited to speak to you.
So excited to be here.
So, our listeners, of course, just heard the whole laundry list of all of your wonderful accomplishments. And I'm curious, of all those accomplishments, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of being able to find my voice at a time where there was not a lot of awareness and education out there around autism and disabilities. So being able to not only start speaking when I was about 7 in complete sentences, but then going on from there to really advocating for myself, getting really used to my therapies and being able to overcome was definitely kind of in a broad sense, definitely one of the things I'm most proud of. And, I'm just proud of my mom and dad too. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful to give that acknowledgments to the parents, I see that that's a lot of what you've talked about, and your social presence has been a lot around just recognizing parents and helping parents understand how to, take care of their autistic children and give them the best support possible. So I think that's excellent work that you're doing. Curious what you do for fun on a regular basis.
Oh God, I'm a diehard Laker fan. We're also getting into football season. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, so hopefully we'll do well this year. But I love sports. That was my key interest growing up. I wanted to grow up to be the next Kobe Bryant, which I share in many of my talks with schools and companies. And I love just watching sports, playing sports. I also love music. I share in many of my talks that I wanted to be the sixth member of the Backstreet Boys. So I feel like if I could be at a beach with a nice drink, listening to some good music, that's my happy place.
That's awesome. That's my happy place too. So, for listeners who aren't as familiar with autism, how would you describe what it is and how it impacts your day to day life?
Sure. So autism is the most important thing I tell people is that it's a spectrum. And if you met one autistic person, you've met just that one autistic person. Being able to understand that at its core, it's characterized as a social and communication disorder, but it's so much broader than that. There are, for me, for example, I had sensory integration dysfunction in addition to twirling. I had a lot of stimming and flapping growing up, which was basically body movements to help me self-regulate when I was growing up. And I think one of the things I hope I can educate more people about is those with high support needs, because typically people come up to me and they say, "Carrie, you have autism, but you don't look like you have autism." And a lot of the times my needs are kind of left unmet because of the fact that I have that invisible disability. I've been able to overcome so many things that I know that a lot of people with high support needs won't be able to do. So when we talk about the spectrum and autism in general, what I hope people realize is that there's going to be individuals like myself, the Temple Grants of the world, who are phenomenal autism advocates, full-time professional speakers speaking with schools and companies around neurodiversity. But then there are going to be people that need lifetime care for their entire lives, who often don't get the opportunity to speak and advocate for themselves. Therefore, a lot of the times when we talk about autism, we talk about that 1%, 2%, but what happens to the other 98 who really need our support?
Yeah, and so you mentioned that, you're someone who you might not be able to tell just by meeting you or interacting with you necessarily that you have autism. That's not apparent about you, but that you do have sometimes have some needs related to that. So I'm wondering kind of what those needs are and what accessibility challenges you face on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think the most important thing today is sensory. I still deal with some hypersensitivity when it comes to loud noises and bright lights. I wear my sunglasses almost even in a cloudy day today in Hoboken, New Jersey. I'm always wearing my sunglasses even when it's cloudy out because of the stimulation of bright lights. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges I still deal with this day. And those unexpected challenges. As a full time professional speaker, I travel just a little over 40 times a year to different locations around the globe to give conversations and talks around autism and neurodiversity. And those unexpected challenges from flight delays to being not really knowing what to expect if there's some people in the crowd who have questions that I can't prepare myself for. As an autistic child, and even today as an adult, routines were really, really pivotal towards me being able to find a structure and being able to be comfortable in my autistic identity. So I think those are some of the biggest challenges I still deal with today. And then sometimes a little mind blindness, but not as often where I'm not able to understand the perspectives of others. But I think I'm doing a lot better with that, with just making sure to be openly communicating my needs to the people I care about the most.
Yeah, that communication is critical. So, what do you wish you had known sooner about disability as a whole, if anything?
I get this question a lot, and I feel like I change my answer every single time.
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest things is the idea that this sounds cliche at this point because I've heard it so much, but there are a lot of abilities in some individuals with disabilities. And for a while growing up, there was always this like scare rhetoric that I like to call it, where people were like, "Oh, we need to cure people of their disabilities because that's the only way that they can live a fulfilling life." And that couldn't be further from the truth. There's so many individuals in our community who are thriving today, not only the Temple Grants of the world, myself, but we see more and more people coming out about their autism every day. We have Wentworth Miller, a TV actor who was on the show Prison Break on Fox, who came out about his autism diagnosis. Elon Musk in 2021 hosted Saturday Night Live and said that he was one of the first hosts who was openly autistic to host the show. We're seeing a lot of people in our community, and I really wish I understood that because there was always just a very negative rhetoric around disabilities. And now we're really grasping onto this whole term of neurodiversity, which is what I love to do in the schools and the companies that I work with, gain the opportunity to make sure that people understand that one disability is lifelong. Autistic children will become autistic adults, and employment will be possible for some, but there are also a lot of possibilities in the disability community.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we're the Rocky Mountain ADA Center, so our focus is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I'm curious to know, when and what did you first learn about the ADA? And, does the ADA come into play in your life? Do you feel like you are leveraging those ADA rights very often? And just kind of maybe your overall sense of that law?
Yeah, sure. So I was first educated about this when I was about 19. It was when I was going for my first paid internship. And as many companies do, they are required to discuss a little bit about the potential reasonable accommodations. And that's when I really learned about the Americans with Disabilities Act for the first time. I had never received any accommodations really when I was in college up to that point. So I kind of was very uneducated, very novice when it came to that. Today, one of the biggest things I do is I advocate around individuals around ADA, making sure that people understand, especially with the lunch and learns I give with many different companies, about the importance of following ADA and also understanding that 503 compliance is really, really important as well. We talk to a lot of companies about the ROI benefits of hiring neurodiverse people in the workplace and really grasping on to ADA and understanding the benefits that it could bring your company, especially in terms of compliance. So I see that a lot in my work today. I give I would say about 75 to 80% of my annual referrals are speaking with companies, whether in person or virtually. And a lot of that goes back to ADA and advocating for the rights of potential employees who have a disability today.
Wonderful. And it sounds like you also do some speaking with school age children, right? So, wondering kind of what you talk about when you go into those maybe high school classrooms or auditoriums, and what are the messages that you're giving to those people that age?
Sure. As we were talking a little bit about, this will come out in a few weeks, but I'm giving 3 talks for back to school coming up, and they're all different. One is K through 2, one is 3 through 5, and then another is 9 through 12. So it really does vary. I talk a lot about autism and physical disabilities, but then also bullying prevention. Those with disabilities are twice as likely to be bullied compared to their non-disabled peers. And it's important, especially during the school year, that we make sure that we speak up, especially for those who might not be able to speak up for themselves and might be easier targets because of their communication limitations, whether it's autism, social communication disorder, the list goes on and on. So I share a lot about my personal journey of growing up with a disability in the school systems and how we can not be bystanders and how we could speak up and advocate to pivot our conversations around disability awareness to disability acceptance, understanding, and celebration. It's the greatest thrill to get the opportunity to have a student come up to me after a presentation, whether it be in person or virtually via Zoom, and just say to me, like, Carrie, I really never knew that anybody with disabilities could feel this way. I remember an instant, this was a few years before COVID, when a student at high school came up to me and said, Carrie, I know you shared about this girl named Kristen who's autistic who had been bullied. And I never knew people with autism could feel the way that they did, how bullying can have lasting challenges. And I wanted you to know that I used to be a bully because I didn't think was affecting anyone, my actions. And I just want you to know I'm never going to bully anyone again because of the impact that that has on some individuals. And I literally told my mom maybe the next day, I was like, Mom, if I never get another speaking engagement for the rest of my life, having that opportunity to just educate somebody who might never bully anyone again and help in the lives of individuals like Kristen, who had suicidal ideation and other challenges, it's a big reason why I do what I do today to help the future generations of kids.
That's a really powerful story. And yeah, you must feel so good about having that immediate impact in somebody's life. You have done some consulting with HBO and Netflix for some of their, really popular shows. And so you're clearly passionate about authentic representation of autism in the media. So I'm wondering kind of what changes you've seen in that department and what more needs to be done.
I think the biggest thing is we need to give autistic and disabled individuals the opportunity to audition more than anything. I still think there are some people without disabilities who have done a phenomenal job acting as somebody with a disability. The best example I could give is if anyone has an HBO Max account, go look up Dr. Temple Grandin's movie. Dr. Temple Grandin is a world renowned autism advocate, grew up autistic. In the movie On Her Life, Claire Danes stars as Temple Grandin. Claire Danes does not have a learning disability, and for that matter, does not have autism, but won a Golden Globe for her portrayal, in addition to receive many different accolades, and really took the time to meet Temple where she was and really get the opportunity to make sure this was an authentic portrayal. What I see a lot of the times, especially with working with groups like HBO and Netflix, is, and they're doing a way better job now than years ago, is giving people with neurodiverse conditions an opportunity to audition for these roles. We just want an opportunity to have our foot in the door, if you will. So I think that's one of the biggest areas we need to go, but we also need to work behind the camera as well. Gain the opportunity to work with Love on the Spectrum for the past 2 years and now going into season 3. which hopefully will be coming out next year, an opportunity to train the crew on how to best meet people with neurodiverse conditions where they are has been a truly amazing opportunity. And it's something that I hope I can do for many years to come, while also going into acting myself, hopefully in 2025 as well.
Oh, that's a great goal. So, what are some of the things that you have noticed the crew needed maybe the most training on, or what are some things that there was unawareness of on behalf of the crew?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, most of them were coming in from no previous relationship to the autism community. So giving it an autism training, a 101, was really important to me, but then also breaking down ways that we could be more sensory and autism friendly on set. For example, instituting quiet rooms, giving people an opportunity to wait 15, 20 seconds after you give them a prompt to make sure that they're actually taking time to process that prompt before going into the next direction, especially for autistic people who may have never been on camera before, which many of them were not on camera before, giving the opportunity to meet them where they are and understanding the importance of that towards authentic representation, especially for a reality TV show like Love on the Spectrum, where these individuals are being genuine and authentic. Nothing is scripted. They are just wanting to find love and relationships. And that's a really beautiful thing. So being able to really break it down for those who don't have that previous connection has meant the world to me. An opportunity to also just be able to give education around that in my talks today, get an opportunity to work with so many incredible groups like the HBOs of the world, the Warner Brothers of the world, but then also get an opportunity to share my story with the Today Show on their website about my role as a consultant for the past 13 years now. Something I hope I can do for many, many years to come, because I think we're seeing more autistic and neurodivergent characters on TV and film every single day.
So, you mentioned at the beginning a little bit about, your parents and how much their support meant to you over the years. And so, what advice would you give to parents of newly diagnosed children with autism who are looking to support their child's development?
Biggest thing is realize that your child is the same child they were before the diagnosis as they will be after the diagnosis. They just may now have more supports to help them thrive. I feel like a lot of the times there are so many autistic families that I consult with, it's deer in headlights. And I understand that because my parents had that reaction. They were like, oh my God, what is this? All they knew about autism back then was Rain Man. So my parents always assumed I'd be great at math, that I would have photogenic memory, and that me and Tom Cruise would become BFFs, and that I would win him $88,000 on the blackjack tables when I became. But that wasn't the case. It's really just important to know that your child is going to be the same child as they were before the diagnosis as after. Love them exactly how you were before, and just go in every single day just trying to be a sponge and trying to learn as much as possible. In my last book I wrote, Supporting Your Autism Journey, which is available to check out on Amazon, I kind of discuss this in a greater concept because I receive about 100, 150 questions each month from parents, educators, therapists, people who just want to learn more about the autism community. So I created a frequently asked question guide in my book based on the 60 most frequent questions I receive from people in their autism community. And some of that does discuss about things like early intervention, discussing things like food aversions, sleep challenges, because I realized that, I wanted to give people a guide. One of my more popular quotes on social media, it's autism doesn't come with an instruction guide. It sometimes comes with a family who will never give up. But I wanted to try to do something because the spectrum is so wide, to at least start the conversations by creating a guide in that book to help new families of children who might be diagnosed.
That sounds like a really helpful resource. We'll certainly link to your website and all those resources in our show notes as well. Tell us a little bit more about, how listeners could connect with you after today's show. What are some of the things that, you're asking people to do? What is your call to action? Is that, hey, engage me as a speaker or follow me on LinkedIn, anything like that?
The first way that you guys can reach out to me is going to my website, carrymagro.com. That's the way that you can contact me, follow me on social media, and learn a little bit more about what I'm doing in the community. The most important thing, I think, is we just need to get the opportunity to spread this awareness out there, because there's still a lot of ignorance in the world. If you are an educator who might have any type of funding, whether you're a Title I school, whether you have a strong PTA where you can bring in a assembly speaker. I travel all around the globe for speaking engagements. I also do staff developments for educators on teaching the way that our students learn, in addition to giving parent talks to give them a better understanding around autism and neurodiversity in K through 12. If you work for a company, see if your employee resource group has any professional development funding. We give talks all year round around things like neurodiversity in the workplace, how to go about hiring more people, but also the onboarding process and what that specifically looks like for neurodiverse individuals. And, the list goes on and on. If you're a government organization, we've worked with some incredible governments to provide funding, grant funding toward more providers like ABA providers, because we understand that ABA has been picking up for years, but more and more people are using ABA as a potential therapy to help their autistic children. So the list goes on and on, but we definitely love to keep those conversations going, how we could educate the world together. So carrymagro.com would be the best place to start in those conversations, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
So, what do you have coming up? What's going on for you in the future in terms of your advocacy, writing? You're a published author, several books you've published, and, spreading awareness. And, what are your goals for the future?
Right now, I signed an NDA, so I can't talk too much about it. But I'm writing an episode for my first kid show, which will have a neurotypical character in it. So I'm really excited about that. And in addition to that, excited to see Love on the Spectrum season 3. Check it out when it comes out. All 4 seasons are available to check out on Netflix. In addition, I have 2 books coming out. One of my books, Autistics on Autism, my nonprofit KFM Making a Difference has given 150 scholarships for autistic students to go to college. And one of the books we wrote, I highlight 100 of those individuals in a tell-all book to provide people a perspective that they may have not heard about in the autism world. So I called it Autistics on Autism. And because of the popularity of that book, we are coming out with a sequel to that book called Autistics on Autism, the next chapter, which will focus on, again, another 100 autistic individuals and what helped them during their journeys, with 100% of the proceeds of that book going directly back to our nonprofit to support our many initiatives, like our teacher grant that we just opened up for teachers, therapists, and aides, so they can have a little bit more funding to provide sensory tools in their classrooms for autistic and neurodiverse individuals. And then I have a children's book coming out in December called Santa Goes the Extra Mile to Help People with Disabilities. I've been a autistic sensory friendly Santa Claus for the past 11 years. So I'm going to be highlighting a children's book on how we can be more inclusive, especially around the holiday season, towards individuals with disabilities.
Wow. Well, you are just a busy person, so I don't want to take up much more of your time. So we'll start wrapping up here. But before we do, is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners? Anything we didn't ask that we should have, or any final words of wisdom you'd like to share?
Yeah, just go every day of your life with just curiosity. I like to say, as kind of like a final closing thought, that I never expected this to be my life. It's been a journey for sure, but I like to say now that autism can't define me, and I define autism. And I can only hope for anyone listening to this podcast that you can go out there and define your lives and your journeys in the way that you best see it every single day.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Carrie.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adventures in Accessibility. Tune in next time for another dive into the unknown.
Adventures in Accessibility is hosted by Emily Schumann, and Jessica Lucania is our sound engineer. This podcast is a project of the Rocky Mountain ADA Center and is funded under a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, grant number 90DPAD0014. This production is intended solely for entertainment and informal guidance and should not be considered legal advice. The opinions expressed by guests are not necessarily held or endorsed by the Rocky Mountain ADA Center.